Hi, Abraham. You've said that we're all soothers.
Soothers?
Soothers. And I do a lot of soothing with my clients. And I would like some help from you on understanding how to soothe someone who is ADD and someone who is bipolar. How can I make them feel more at peace with where they are? What words can I use, or how could I do that?
Do you notice as you interact with these people or with anyone that there are times that they are closer to soothing than others? Mm-hmm. We've noticed that what so many teachers do is they try to offer their remedy at the time when their student is less likely to hear it. So what you do is, what does bipolar mean in simple terms?
This is the thing, I'm not that familiar with it, but it's extreme emotional behavior.
So in the extreme, that means sometimes they feel really, really good, and sometimes they feel really, really bad. So as you let the majority of your soothing and your attention be offered when they are feeling really, really good, rather than when they are feeling really, really bad, because what happens is, if you're feeling here and they're feeling here, they can't hear you anyway. When they're feeling here and you're feeling here, you have a better chance of building a relationship, and then you're more likely to catch them somewhere in between. Now, just because they experience extremes, does that mean that they really go from one extreme to the other in a moment? Or do you think they move up the scale and down the scale?
I'm sure they move up the scale and down the scale.
Yes, and so the description that most people offer about the ups and downs of these bipolar, we think the description in and of itself is counterproductive, because it implies something that is not accurate and really not even in vibrational terms even possible, because it implies that they can bounce from signal to signal to signal to signal when they can't. And so if it's someone that you're interacting with, how often do you see this person?
Oh, this would be a client. And when I see them, they're in a good place.
So what you're wanting to do is to help them understand why it is they feel the way they do, and give them some tools so that before it gets too far, they can begin feeling better.
Right.
We offered an analogy. In fact, our favorite analogy ever the other day relative to this subject, when we were talking to someone who was experiencing some pretty severe depression and worry. And we said, have you ever awakened from your sleep at the beginning of a foot cramp? And this person said yes, he understood the analogy. And we said, and what do you do? Do you have a sensation that if you can do something to soften it early on, that it may not carry you away into that agony? He said yes. And we said, and what have you discovered is a remedy? And he said, I stretch my toes. I point my toes at the ceiling and try to hold that position until the cramp softens. And we said, so if you have had that leg cramp experience, and you know that through trial and error, if you point your toes this way, it gets worse, and if you point your toes this way, it gets better. When you wake up, do you just, in a sort of masochistic way, point your toes in the way that will make it much, much worse? And he said, no, of course not. In other words, he always does what he has discovered will feel better. And so while it may be more obvious in a leg cramp, in time you can help everyone understand that if they reach for thoughts that feel better, while they may not have, in other words, if you wait until you're in the throes of an extreme fit of depression, the cramp is too severe, and almost anything you do will not give you enough immediate relief to let you really know that you have affected it deliberately. But when you get so that you're applying your thoughts deliberately in advance of the severity of the negative emotion, then in time you can help yourself know that you have the power to head it off if you want to. And so these are the tools that you see, the problem that a counselor or a physician, even almost anyone who is wanting to assist someone in feeling better, the problem that most of them have, no matter what endeavor they are offering, is that they usually come to you when they are at their vibrational worst. And when they are at their vibrational worst, it's hard for them to hear what you have to say. And so really just coaxing them along by helping them to understand that they must care about their emotion, and feeling a little better, even a little better, is a big step. We like to say to people that if you can find a thought that helps you breathe a little more easily, then we want you to stop and compliment yourself for having deliberately directed your thought to a vibration that is giving you relief. But you've got to explain to them the whole scenario. You have to help them to understand that everything that they are living, and we promise you, even the simplest child can get this. Everything that everyone is living is vibrationally based. And every moment that everyone is living, they are getting emotional feedback that is telling them the exact specifics of the emotional, vibrational content of their being. And once you have conveyed that to them in a way that they can hear it, and you show them just some simple techniques that will alter their vibration. You know, it's interesting. Over time, we've watched religion. We have watched every religion. We've watched processes. We've watched every process. We've seen every human interaction. We've seen every movement up the emotional scale and every movement down the emotional scale. There is nothing that any have tried and succeeded at, or tried and failed at, that we are not intimately aware of. And one thing that is absolutely important to understand in all of that is that every step along the way, every individual, whether they knew it or not, was being given clear guidance. But until you make it clear to them that the guidance is based upon vibrational relativity, until you make it clear to them that here they stand, but there is another part of them that is calling, then you can't introduce them to their guidance system. And if you can't introduce them to their guidance system, then you cannot be of any value to them. In other words, until somebody gets it, that they have this within them and that they have sensory perception that is letting them know, you have nothing to give them except more rhetoric, more rules, and in most cases it is those rhetoric and rules that got them into the jam that they're in to begin with. Somebody in their life, and usually a lot of somebody, said to them, we want you to join our club, and to do so you need to keep these rules, and if you break these rules you're bad. And it's such an interesting thing to watch the rules that are set up for you. In other words, nobody can keep those rules. There's too many of them. And then they stand back and they go, yes, just as we suspected, you are bad. So the very rules that they established in order to help you, by their standards, be good, were the rules that caused your self-worth to erode, which took you away from your source, which is what is at the heart of your dysfunction to begin with, you see. The only way out of dysfunction is to understand how you got there. And the only way to understand how you got there is to understand that you didn't follow the guidance that you've got. And the only way then to discover how to follow the guidance that you've got is to understand what the basis of it is. And once you teach them the basis of it, we promise you, they will show you such success so quickly, because there is not one with whom you work that does not want to feel good. Every single thing that every single person thinks they want, whether it's a relationship or a pile of money or a circumstance or event, every single thing they want is because they think they will feel better in having that experience or that condition. And when you show them the power of feeling better just by directing your thought into vibrational alignment with who you are, start by saying to them, when someone loves you and conveys it to you, the reason it feels good is because it causes you to vibrate in alignment with who you really are, and it closes the gap. But when somebody criticizes you, the reason it feels so bad is because it causes you to achieve vibrational alignment with them not loving you, which causes a big gap between how source really feels about you. This is not hard to understand, is it? How would anyone get to the place where they would not know that a good feeling is a good thing? How would you ever get to the place where you could experience a thought that feels horrible and hear somebody explain to you that terrible feeling of guilt is a good thing? That terrible feeling of not loving yourself, that's a good thing. You are supposed to be humble and you're not supposed to love yourself. It's very much upside down for most people. It's a surprise that more of you are not bipolar. Because you are born feeling this, and when life causes you to feel this, what a roller coaster ride that has been for so many, you see. So you just do your best to soothe as best you can. But here is the most significant answer that we could give you from teacher to teacher. When you see them in their struggle, if you feel sad or pain over their struggle, you have nothing to give them. You have to maintain your shining light. And so as a teacher, here's what you want to do. You want to be a real life, a real live on earth, in their face, representative of their inner being. When they're not with you, you want to write enough about them that you tune the vibration of your being to the vibration of their inner being, so that when they stand before you, you don't see them in their dysfunction. You see them so clearly as they are, that at least while they're talking to you, they start to feel it a little more. You are literally going to activate within them, by the power of your undivided attention, who they really are. It's not so different from a grandmother who just loves you anyway, no matter what. Your parents say to your grandmother, don't spoil this child. And you say to the parents of your grandchild, this child is unspoilable. This child is perfect. This child is pure positive energy. This child has no flaws. And as you tune yourself to the flawless nature of person after person, you will be like a satellite dish beaming in from their source energy who they really are. And you will cause them, maybe for the first time in their life, to get a glimpse, a true glimpse of who they are. That's the power of a teacher. Can't teach them what you don't know. And if you don't know their perfection, then do your best to stay away from them.
Okay, thank you.